Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanam Janashalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namashrishtam Manumahati Satchiputram Atraswarupam Rupam Tasya Grajamuru Purim Matharim Gastavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Gripaya Shri Gurum Jannatasmi Vancha Kalpataro Vyasya Kripa Sindhubhyaiva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikhila Shruti Moli Ratnamala Diti Nirajita Padapankajanta Aji Mukta Kulairupasyamanam Paritastam Harinam Samsrayami Anarpitacharim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalam Shamarpaitamunnatas Balarasam Savakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipita Sada Hridaye Kandaresh Purato Vasachinandana Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavatato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dhyavaro Jugadharma Pala Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavataru Ladini Shakti Sarupaya Gauranga Suridaya Cha Bhakta Shakti Pranaya Gadadhara Namastute He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Radhe Vrindavanadhishe Karunamrita Vahini Kripaya Nijapadabja Darshan Mahyam Pradiyatam Bhaktya Bihina Aparadha Lakshay Kshiptastha Kamadi Tarangamadhye Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapanam Vrindenmaste Charanaravindam Vrindenmaste Charanaravindam Srila Gurudev Patita Pavan ki Jai Sriman Mahaprabhu ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Shri Shri Dauji Gopal ji ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Gaur Priman Hari Hari Bo. So, pranam to all of you. Good evening. Good evening to all the ones connected online as well. And greetings from Sri Madhuvan in Costa Rica, at the feet of Sri Sri Dauji Gopal on the Vaishnava. So today we are starting some series of lectures today and these days, different types of lectures, but today is, according to how it was announced, special lecture. Specialty is that all of you are here basically. And we will be basically addressing whatever questions you may have, whatever topics you may like to speak about. We will have ISTAGOSTHI, which basically means that type of personalized interaction, where questions are presented according to the individual need and a reply is invoked, hopefully according to the individual need and capacity as well of the speaker. So that's it. I don't know if there are any questions, any topic. We already have interesting ISTAGOSTHI in the morning, so maybe we ran out of questions. But I hope there are always some further divine curiosity over there. Any questions?
I'm wondering how, as I understand, Santa-rasa is present somehow in all the subsequent rasas. So I'm wondering how to see it present in, say, Sakya-rasa, Vatsarya-rasa, or Mangalacarana.
Okay. I don't know. I will repeat the question in case it was not heard here. Here, Sure, Krishna Prabhu is asking, he's wondering how Santa-rasa is present in all the remaining subsequent rasas, like that's the Sakya Vatsali Madhuri in Vrindavan specifically. So yeah, Santa-rasa, it's a pretty cryptic dimension because we hear very many interesting things about Santa-rasa. Things like that Santa-rasa can be upgraded to other rasas, or Santa-rasa is not necessarily a form of prem, interestingly, because it doesn't include mamata, which is basically one of the most defining attributes of prem. Mamata means possessiveness, a sense of, I mean, we have hamamata, that's what samsara is about, hamameti, I, me, mine, like George Harrison used to sing. Do not make me feel that old. You also heard that song, please? All through the day, I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. So it's an interesting composition that he's basically depicting the wandering in this world. And the common pattern is aham mameti, which is I, me, mine. I, me, my sense of I, as our Guru Maharaj will say, is defined by what we think it belongs to us. So it's a very like superficial sense of identity, since ultimately nothing belongs to us, but we are to ask ourselves, who do we belong to, instead of what does belong to me. That's a really superficial and limited way of addressing reality. So we have that mamata on this world that is the source of entanglement, but we have the mamata in Golok, for example, which is the source of enlightenment, if you will, and rasa. Vatsalya, no, I mean, just show that her identity is defined because she thinks Krishna is my child. But in that case, she's right, she's correct. So that's not a problem. When you think here, this is mine, and therefore I am whatever, that's the problem. Just as it's, Krishna is my child, and therefore I am his mother. So her sense of I is derived on her sense of mine, but her sense of mine is a permanent one on the basis of Krishna in the center. So that's one of the most defining qualities of prem, no? Possessiveness. And Santa-rasa is one of the main qualities of Santa-rasa is nirmamata, which means lack of possessiveness. So then you can make a case of necessarily Shanta doesn't mean prem. You can speak in terms of rati. That's how Rupa Goswami speaks in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu. He says Santa rati. You will never read he's speaking in terms of Santa prem. And interestingly, when Mahaprabhu also is speaking about, or Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is speaking about what Mahaprabhu came to give to the world, of course we can speak in different levels. In a very unique and exclusive level, we can say he came to give Unnata Uchpala Rasam, the most immediate extended experience of what he himself has experienced. That may be Manjari Bhav, but we know that that's not the only dispensation of Gaudiya Sampradaya, and we also have the second half of Mahaprabhu in the form of Srinitai, and the current of Sakya Bhav coming through him. So there you can make the one extend into two, but Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is even more generous, if you will. He's speaking in terms of Chari Bhav in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chari Bhav means the four bhavs of Vrindavan. But again, interestingly, when he says the four, he's not saying the five. Santa-rasa is not in the equation there. He's including from Dasya up to Madhurya Bhav. So it's not that we are against Santa-rasa or anything, but it's a very particular situation. So in connection to your question, how is that Santa-rasa is included in the other rasas? Of course, there is a way to speak about that, and Rupa Goswami does, by giving this example of the ingredients of the rasala. Rasala is like a very sweet preparation that has camphor and has sugar, molasses, and has ghee, has 5 ingredients. So he makes the case comparing Madhurya Rasa with that, and speaking about the other ingredients in the other, but also we have to understand in which sense that is implied, no? Because sometimes you can take that literally and think, I don't know, if Vatsalya Bhav is before Madhurya-bhavas, generally is depicted, although Vatsalya Bhav is about Sakya Bhav, sorry, in terms of aesthetic rapture, with the exception of Priyanarma Sakya actually, but in generic Sakya Bhav is below. But in which, you may ask, so in which sense Yashoda is in Sakya Bhav with Krishna, no? Because if Sakya is included in the higher equation of Vatsalya, there is some Sakya. And you can say, yeah, there is some Sakya. Mother has some friendship with the child, but at the same time, it's speaking more about like the levels of ecstatic ingredients that each rasa is like allowing to experience, and the higher ones are including the because when we speak about prem, as you know, that's not the end of the story, you know. I mean, that's just for Gaudius, that's just the beginning. No? So many develops, no? Sneha, Man, Pranay, Rag, Anurag, Bhav, Mahabhav, Adirudha Mahabhav, Rudha Mahabhav, Adirudha Mahabhav, Mohaman Ke Mahabhav, and there are so many like levels of that. So when Rupa Goswami speaks about some rasa including the previous one, it's mostly in the sense of including the level of prem that is present in the previous one, plus some further bonus track, if you will, some extra experience there. So regarding your question, how is Santa-rasa included in whatever, in Jashoda's Vatsalya, on Rupa Manjari's Manjari Vaha, or whatever? Of course, we have to understand how, because again, Santa-rasa is characterized by one of the attributes is nirmamatva. So for sure, that's not the way in which Santa-rasa is present in in Jashoda's Vatsalya. I mean, if you pay attention to Yashoda, she's like the embodiment of possessiveness, no? Especially when Krishna is about to go for Gocharana Lila with the cows every day with his friends. I mean, you can see her Vatsalyahood like overflowing the whole Vrindavan, drowning the whole Braj in her motherhood possessiveness, no? Like totally imbued in protecting Krishna and invoking different mantras and protecting the different direction and putting Nrsimha Kavachas and blessing the different, and giving weapons to all the friends of Krishna. You protect him on the north, you on the south, you on the east, be careful of the demons, do not allow him to go here, do not allow. And this is getting longer and longer, and Krishna's like, we have to go right now. And the cows are mooing, the friends are shouting, it's getting late. And you know the whole story. So you cannot say, oh, there is no possessiveness there. No, it's just so it's detached. No, not at all. So Santa-rasa is not present in her in the form of lack of possessiveness, but for sure. But of course, that's not the all in all about Santa-rasa. So Santa-rasa also is characterized by a lack of selfishness. So like a foundational underlying platform on the basis of which all the other static rasic experiences are built upon. So in that sense, of course, we can say in that way we find Santa-rasa in her. In that sense, again, in the type of worldly detachment, even though again it seems totally attached, totally possessive. It doesn't seem, it is, but again, with the center, in the center. So I will mostly emphasize that side of the equation, because generally we will, Santa-rasa is it's very much connected with yogic practices and more passive adoration, as you have heard, as Guru Maharaj will say, the beatific contemplation or vision. When you are like satisfied about just like sitting and even not having direct relationship of service with Bhagavan. That's another point that Rupa Goswami makes in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, and Jiva Goswami elaborates in his purport, that from the 4 types of mukti that are relatively acceptable for us, although in Gaudiya Sampradaya, none of them are at all desirable, actually, that are considered even an obstacle to the ultimate refined ideal that we want to attain. But let's say for a minute, no, we have 5 types of mukti. One of them, of course, Brahma Sayuja, is not at all considered, but the other 4, Sarsti, Samipya, Salokya, and Sarupya, from those 4, only Samipya, according to Guru Maharaj, we have been speaking about this recently quite a lot, only Samipya includes Prem, which Samipya means you are residing in the same planet of Bhagavan and in proximity with him. Not only in the same planet, because I mean, we are in the same planet with so many people, we don't even have a clue about who they are. So you can be in the same planet with Narayan and it may feel cool. I mean, the Narayan's planet, he may be right next to the over the corner or on the other side of the globe of Vaikuntha. But Samipya implies not only Salokya, again, Salokya means in the same planet. Samipya means in a relationship of service. That type of connection implies some dasya in Vaikuntha. But the other types of mukti in Vaikuntha, Sarsti having the opulence of Narayan, Sarupya having the form of Narayan, Salokya residing in the same planet of Narayan, may not imply any form of dasya, but just Santa. And Santa means someone is satisfied, as in the words of Guru Maharaj, with the perks, he says, the perks of Vaikuntha. No? So you can have this form, you can have this wealth, you can have this planet, and that's all. So, of course, again, in that sense, Santa-rasa is not too much connected with what we find in Braj, because it's not enough for them to be in the same planet. I mean, they want to be with Krishna every single moment of their life, and whenever they are not with him for a minute, it's Yugaitam Nimeshena. So it's not like, we are in the same planet with, I mean, you don't see the gopis, Krishnas going to Mathura. Well, we'll remain in the same planet, so no problem. We remain in the same even town, in the same country, so it's okay. We are not that far. No, I mean, they lose sight of him for a minute and they are going crazy. But if you want to put it on top of that, sometimes Sri Radha is in front of Krishna and somehow she experiences Prem Vaitchitya, and she's experiencing separation in union. Krishna is in front of him, it's a famous story, and the bumblebee comes and you have to get Madhusudan off the stage. So there are different versions of that. So sometimes one of the gopis is saying, okay, now Madhusudan is gone. He has gone to the Patmali. Like Lalita saying, like the bumblebee has been chased away and now he's in the lotus. But Sri Radha understands Madhusudan, the name of Krishna, and Padmali means the friend of Padma, who is Chandravali. So she understands, oh, Krishna went with Chandravali now. While although Krishna is in front of her, sitting there. So she falls into the swoon of separation in ecstasy and starts to cry, and I cannot live without him, and why he live. And Krishna is saying to the gopis, don't say anything. No, I want to witness this unique ecstatic expression. So I'm saying all this to make some comparison or contrast between those who are in Vaikuntha and feel relatively comfortable to just be in the planet of God, even without seeing him on a daily basis. and the Vraja-bhavas is on the other extreme, not being able to tolerate a second without seeing him. So I will mostly connect the experience of Santa-rasa again with this idea. Guru Maharaj will say, also emphasize this point of universal compassion. Lack of selfishness and universal compassion as 2 very distinctive features of Santa. Prahlad Maharaj is like one embodiment of Santa-rati. So, and he's very much in these 2 lines, the story when Nrsimhadev is offering something and offering something, take some blessing from me, and Prahlad say, Prabhu, have you seen me face? I do have face of a Vaishya or something. No? Do you feel like I'm worshiping you to make business with you? That I'm worshiping, so now you offer me some blessing and I can ask whatever I want? What a pity I was born with this Vaishya face, Prahlad says. I don't want to be a businessman with you. I don't want to worship you in exchange of something. As Guru Maharaj says, someday you reach that point of insight when you understand that giving is the receiving, actually. not that the more you give, the more you receive. I mean, at one point, to begin with, you have to reach there first, because in the beginning you feel no giving, but just receiving. So eventually, the panorama gets bigger. But again, these are nice words, but you have to live them. It's not so easy to really reach that point of inner insight when you really feel that giving is the receiving. That day I was reading some article from one boy who was like, there was some tornado or something in one place, and one boy, maybe he had like 20 something years, and he saved one little smaller boy of 4 or 5 years who lost everything because of the tornado. And he kind of adopted this little boy as his new brother or something. So he was saying, like, it feels good to give. No. And of course, I appreciate we have to begin somewhere, but also, and I'm not judging him, I don't know him, but you could feel by the context of the rest of what he was saying that he was feeling good because of giving, but still there was some separate sense of, I feel good, and I'm giving because I feel good. So sometimes giving to others or helping others also may be a way of developing some form of ego at the same time. I'm helping, they depend on me, I'm special. I mean, all the things can be there in the name of giving also. So again, it's not such a grotesque way of feeding your ego, but still you may be feeding your ego. I mean, there are so many ways to feed your ego. You may, as Thomas Merton said, you may want to be a saint as a way of feeding your ego only. Because if I am a saint, I'm a saint. I mean, almost nobody's a saint. So if you get to be a saint, well, you're a saint. You belong to another category. So in a very subtle way, you may be using the most ideally opposite structure regarding ego to feed your ego. Like, I want to be a saint. So one side you have that, no, like the lack of selfish interest, and being in love with dedicating yourself and giving yourself to God. Basically, that's not so easy. So Santa-rasa has to do with that, and therefore a strong sense of detachment from this world. Of course, again, our lineage is not just detachment, but a detachment that comes as a byproduct of certain attachment. But nonetheless, detachment has to be there. I mean, there are so many verses in our tradition that detachment is being mentioned. Okay, yes, as a byproduct of bhakti, but it has to be there. It's not that you use the excuse, no, I'm only for attaching to Krishna. Okay, no problem. So let's see the byproduct in the form of detachment. And never detachment is coming. So say, where's your attachment to Krishna? Because one thing will take the other. That's in many places. Mahaprabhu Bhakta Ganir Vairagya Pradam Yaha Dehi Dikak Hoy Gaura Bhagavan. Chaitanya Charitamrita is saying, Mahaprabhu Bhakta Ganir Vairagya Pradhan. One of the most defining qualities of the associate of Mahaprabhu is Vairagya, detachment. Yaha Deki Prita Hoy Gaura Bhagavan. And when Mahaprabhu sees that detachment in his devotees, he becomes so happy. But again, it's a type of detachment which is rooted in divine, passionate love. Bhakti Parishanubhav Viraktir, says the Bhagavata, the same thing. Tushti Pushti Kshudapanyo Nugasam. Like when you are hungry, three things will happen simultaneously when you have morsels of food. One, you obtain taste. You taste the food, it has some flavor. Second, you receive strength. The food is entering, the energy is coming. And third, hunger is disappearing with every morsel. The three things are happening at the same time. I think you had the experience today with pasta, with donuts, and so on. So Bhagavatam uses this daily example to speak about what should happen when we engage in bhakti. You have to increase it, you have to develop a taste for the bhajan, you have to increase your internal realization of Bhagavan, and Viraktir. Viraktir means detachment. No, like no more hunger, basically. Well, similarly, when you speak, you hear the attributes of Bhava Bhakti, mostly the first one, Kshantir, Viraktir, Avyartha Kalatvam, detachment. But again, of course, in the context of certain attachment. So I'm saying all this because, again, we will see detachment. Detachment belongs to Santa-rasa, but generally in Santa-rasa, detachment has more a yogic-like orientation, which is not so much like with the attachment element to the equation, but just detachment. But there is detachment in Vrindavan as a byproduct of the attachment. Again, it doesn't. It's not like how to say, overt, evident, especially in Vrindavan. But as we know, when all of those Vraja-bhavas came in the form of sadhakas, where detachment is plays, if you will, a more prominent role in certain examples or whatever dynamics of the lila, then you see how detached they are. When you see and even in Vrindavan, no? That's Guru Maharaj used to point when, I don't know, Nanda and Yashoda want to have a child, and they do this Dwadasi brat for a year. like nothing. Okay, let's do this brat. Okay, let's do this brat. And for 1 year, this extreme tapasya, but without even like, okay, we have to prepare to this difficult. No, we have to do this brat. Okay, let's do it. And they do like in a normal, like without even thinking about that, this brat. So you see, wow, if you pay close attention, you will see the detachment that is present in Vrindavan. But in Gaur Lila, that appears much more overtly in the form of a Rupa Goswami or whoever. So again, there is vairagya. So I would say those two things. On one side, the lack of detachment connected with this idea of this like lack of selfishness and universal compassion, which again, in the Vraja-lila, it may not take that much overt prominence, because in one sense, compassion takes another form, because there's nobody to preach to in Vrindavan, basically. No, it's not that let's go and distribute books and enlighten all these Vraja-bhavas. I mean, Uddhav tried to do that, but the Vraja-bhavas sold him a whole Bhagavata collection. He read the book and he was in there. Oh, wow. So he went with the tons of book, but he ended being preached to. So, but there is, I mean, they have another type of compassion. Again, it's not that there's no compassion in the Braj, but it's another form of compassion. They have compassion for Krishna, for example, or like this for Yashoda in separation from each other. It's another form compassion is taken in the context of rasa. But again, when they come in Gaur Lila, they show extreme compassion, extreme humility. And all that could be the Santa-rasa in the Nitya Vraja-bhavas, basically. No? For us to understand that we have, as Guru Maharaj will mention that over and over again, you want Vrindavan, you want Chari Bhav, you want Sakhya Bhav, you want Madhurya Bhav. First, you embrace all that Santa-rasa implies for you as a sadhaka in connection to your goal of Vrindavan. So first, you have to develop universal compassion. First, you have to develop the humility that goes hand by hand with that universal compassion. First, you have to be free from all levels of selfishness. Again, not as a paranoia or neurosis or anything, but just as a necessary experience that we need to go through in order to really get there, to not cheat ourselves and make something so dignified and so refined, something lower than what it really is. That's the last thing we want to do. We should be very prayerful not to make our ideal something less of what it really is, actually. And it's so easy to do that because the ideal is so high, and we may have so easy a tendency to make things cheaper than what they are, because that's the language of this world. No? try to make everything as cheaper as possible, to pay as less as I can, to remain as the more in the comfort zone as I can. So, and we know that Vrindavan is not about that. Vrindavan is about getting out of the comfort zone. Vrindavan is getting out of the ego zone and die to live. So many phrases that we have, we can repeat one after the other, but actually we have to enter into those concepts, because we can be speaking about that for eternity, but these concepts are to be inhabited by us, not just like parroted. I mean, I'm saying that for me to begin with, just recently we were in Vrindavan and we were doing Govardhan Parikram one day with Srila Bhakti-Vichar Vishnu Maharaj and other sadhus also, Bhakti Sundar Sadhu Maharaj and others. And we were walking and one lady came, one Vraja-bhavas lady, one Vraja Gopi, like born in Vrindavan. You could feel that old lady with the sari and bringing on her head like a big like pile of cow dung, not dry, so it was not that heavy, but it was big. So at least you have to know how to be in balance I'm working normally with that. So we were working on Srila Vishnu Maharaj points and her said, Vraja Gopika. Everyone wants to be a Vraja Gopika, but nobody wants to do what she's doing. We all chuckle because yes, that's the fun. I want to be Gopi. I want to taste this. But if you pay attention, what's the daily dynamics of being a Vraja Gopika? It's like menial service after menial service after menial service after menial service, and the point is for you to be fully satisfied with that, you have to be free from ego for sure. Because if you ask me, Maharaj, what's my eternal service? What will be my eternal aesthetic sacred rapture? Carrying cow dung for eternity. I was like, okay, is there something more like confidential or intimate? Well, Raghunath Das Goswami is cleaning Shirada's toilet with her braid as manjari. You can do that one. I can give you the toilet for eternity also. That's like some more leadership role there and organized. So the only thing we are doing is projecting our pratishta into the lila, basically. And you're just realizing I still have layers and layers of ego and self-centeredness that I need to get rid of before going there. Because I will never go there with that to begin with. It's not that I will be there with that and that will be a problem. No, I won't go there. So Santa-rasa has to do with all that, basically. I mean, Santa comes from Shanti, and Shanti means peace. And of course, as Guru Maharaj will say, peace and love. It all converges in love, but you have to know how to be in peace also. And Krishna in the Gita says that. He says, people wants to be happy, but they are not so much concerned with being at peace with themselves. But one thing takes to the other. I mean, you can have real happiness without being in peace. And the problem, people in this world want to be happy without being in peace. So you see which is the result of that. Just want to enjoy, not be happy. That's a different thing. Real happiness is have to be in peace. And of course, peace implies so many things. And as sadhakas, we have to culture so many things that have to do with peace. I mean, how Rupa Goswami begins Upadeshamrita. I mean, he ends, how that he ends. Okay, yes, Radha Kunda ki jai, Vrindavan, above Vaikuntha and Ayodhya and all the layers, and our ultimate converging goal, this Madhurya Seva and so on. But again, how does he begin? Control your tongue, control your genitals. And it sounds like, ooh, why so bold? Can he be a little bit more romantic or like in presenting certain... And the first verses are like, oof, no? Like, do not do a satsanga, do not overeat, do not overaccumulate stuff, do not critique. And it's like, ooh. But you can measure, if you don't like to hear that, probably it's because you are not beyond that. Because if you are beyond that, or if you are fully into that, you will feel fortunate. Oh, so nice that someone like Rupa Goswami is reminding me about that. That's how Raghunath Das Goswami reacted when, remember, Das Goswami was the topmost renunciant and Prayojan Tattvacharya, and he was like dying for personal instruction by Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu said, do not gossip. He began with that. It's not the Raghunath Das, why do you tell me do not gossip? I am Raghunath Das Goswami. He didn't say that. He was like being grateful. Do not gossip. Then, as you know, he told him, do not eat fancy food. And it's not the Raghunath Das Goswami say, hey, Mahaprabhu, I'm just eating the grains that not even the cows in Jagannath Puri are taking. Why do you tell me if do not eat fancy food? I'm not going to the MBT there in Vrindavan and eating pasta and pizza and asking for some local thing for my, no. And then do not wear fancy clothes. I mean, and Raghunath Das Goswami was wearing, luckily, a kopin. He didn't say, hey, it's not a fancy kopin I'm wearing. He was just accepting everything and imbibing that. Of course, that was not for him. But and then he said, yes, Vraja Radha Krishna Seva Manasa Karibe. In your mind, serve Radha Krishna in Vrindavan. But he began saying, do not gossip. Like implying, you cannot get to the gossip in Vrindavan if you don't stop gossiping here. I mean, in Vrindavan, it's full of gossip. Everyone is gossiping about Krishna in different ways. But it's a prakrit gossip. If you want to get to the prakrit gossip, you have to transcend all the other so-called gossips. Raghunath Das Goswami did his homework nicely. He obeyed Mahaprabhu. And then at the end of his Vraja-bhavas stava, he's saying something very nice. But again, you cannot imitate that. First, you have to do your homework. Then you can repeat that verse. I repeated because I was reading the book, but I felt I can just repeat it because I'm reading the book, but I have to do my homework yet. Raghunath Das Goswami said, even if someone invites me to Dwarka and tells me that Krishna is there and there is a great celebration of Hari Katha going on, instead of going there, I will remain in Vrindavan speaking Prajalpa with non-devotee Vrajavasis, he said, in Vrindavan. But I won't leave Vrindavan. I will remain in Vrindavan speaking Prajalpa with non-devotee Vrajavasis instead of going somewhere else to hear even Hari Katha if Krishna is present there. But again, from which side he's saying that, and so it's important to know which level of homework do we have to do at present, basically. So there is a lot of what Santa-rasa implies that we need to embrace, to be shanti ourselves, to be in peace. Like Krishna said, Bhukranam yajñatapasam sarvalokamaheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyataman shantim richati. When you finally accept that I am the supreme controller, enjoyer, and friend, you attain Santa-rasa, if you will. You become peaceful. So then comes our own introspection. How much I am accepting Krishna as my, not as the enjoyer, but as my enjoyer. It's not that, Krishna is the enjoyer. See, the enjoyer of what? Of whom? It's not that he's the enjoyer. Let him enjoy with the. I'm not part of that game. Let him enjoy, and you what? You are trying to be the separate enjoyers club for yourself. It means you are proportionate to how much you want to remain the enjoyer. You are not accepting that he is the enjoyer. So if there is some problem in accepting that Krishna is the enjoyer, it means that we have not fully understood and digested the whole idea of enjoyment, actually, and how he deserves to be the full enjoyer, because he knows how to do it. We don't know how to do it. How many times we try to enjoy and it gets worse and worse. So that shows we are not the supreme enjoyer. We don't know how to enjoy. We are to be enjoyed by the supreme enjoyer, and that's enjoyment for us, basically. And again, Krishna is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, the supreme controller. How much we have engaged in Saranagati and really accepted that, the more we do that, we can be in peace. And the more we accept he's our friend, means we trust him, and we are not like nervous about what's going on in our lives and trying to calculate and make something happen according to what we think is best. All that means I'm not in peace yet. Krishna Bhakta what is Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Taiva Santa Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakalya Santa. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami gives his definition of what's a devotee of Krishna. He says Krishna Bhakta Nishkam. Again, that's quite Santa-rasa like. He connects Nishkam and Santa. Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ataiva Santa. A devotee of Krishna is Nishkam, is free from selfish motives, therefore Ataiva Shanta. He's in peace. he connects, no? Selflessness with peace. And bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakali, asanta. But those who want mukti, bhukti, siddhi, no? Sense enjoyment, even liberation, mystic perfections, kami, they desire this, sakali ashanta. They are ashanta. They cannot be in peace. They cannot fully sleep at night. They can go into this deep sleep because their desires are disturbing them. So that's a very clear definition of what's Santa-rasa, if you will, how Santa-rasa is included in the Vrindavan equation. And again, we may not be full-fledged Vraja-bhavas yet, but that's our ideal. So we need to, how to say, to act accordingly to our ideal, even though we may be lifetimes away from the full accomplishment of the ideal. We need to proceed in such a way that at least we are walking those lifetimes and we're treading the path of those lifetimes, so we get closer and closer. So yeah, we all have to go through these things, no matter if you go to, yeah, we were speaking about that recently in Radhakund, because some devotees may think, oh, I go to Radhakund, I get Siddha Pranali, Ikada Subhav, and what? I mean, you have to go through all the same things that we have to go here in Madhavan, in Argentina, in any other Gaudiya group. It's not that someone told you you are this Manjari and you are beyond selfish motives and you transcend the lack of control. You are in the exact same situation. You have to go through all these things. So the homework is there, is waiting for us. So yeah, I will try to point in that direction regarding how to conceive Santa-rasa as a sadhakas here now, and in connection to the ideal role models that we see them in Vrindavan and in Nam. Okay, 40 minutes answer, sorry. Any other question?
Question, Maharaj, about
Yes.
this peace, because it seems like we need this inner peace to become pure devotees. But meanwhile, joining Lila is nothing but peace. There's so much stuff going on. So where is this peace in Nitya-lila?
Yeah, again, because that's why Guru Maharaj said peace and love. No, so love enters into the picture, and it seems that it's doing away with all possible peace. It may be it's a Buddha charit, as Guru Maharaj today was quoting this famous verse, the astonishing qualities of divine love. It makes everything seem something different from what it is, basically. And that's how love preserves itself and hides itself behind a certain like packaging from those who do not have the eyes to appreciate that. So I agree that Krishna Lila, Vraja-lila is can be pretty overwhelming. As Guru was narrating today, Brahma Vimohan Lila, and will narrate these days. Brahma was pretty overwhelmed. He had idealized, my guru is like this, and this is the way to be spiritual, and this is the way to behave in relation to God, and eating a picnic with left hand was not in his equation. His foreheads start to like, but still peace is there. But again, the point is peace is there in a very foundational level, in the form of universal compassion, selflessness. But, and I know this is not easy to understand, but that is so little in comparison to what is above that peace, that it seems not to be there at all. Maybe for us, that peace is like, wow, I want peace. I need peace. I need peace of mind, and so on. But in Vrindavan, as you mentioned, it seems that they are every single day like totally engaged and preoccupied with Krishna, and Jasoda crying and disturbed, and where is he, and in anxiety, and Gopi is crying, and everyone's like, oh my God, it doesn't seem that there is any peace here. better I go to Vaikuntha or something. Everything's more quiet there. That's what happened to Gopakumar. He was in Vaikuntha, and he kind of didn't fit there. And everything was nice, peaceful. Narayan was there, eternity is there, but he was in anxiety because everything was too less dynamic, if you will. No? Everyone was like meditating and beatific contemplation and too peaceful, and he was like brimming with prem. So that created another type of anxiety, but in the context of prem. And again, it may be difficult for us to fully appreciate that. And first, we may need to be in peace in the context of bhakti to get closer to appreciate that much better. But again, peace is there. But peace is not the ultimate goal for us. Again, Santa-rasa. Shanta is just the foundation, at least on the higher world. On the lower world here, generally, it is described that the list is like inverted. No? In this world, there, parakia is the higher thing. Here, parakia is the most condemned stuff, at least officially. Extramarital relationships is not something that the society will like praise. It's on the lower end, but and the Golok is on the higher end. On Golok, Santa-rasa is on the lower end. Here is on the higher end. To be at peace, universal compassion, to go beyond extramarital, marital, mother relation, father relation, friend, and to be a citizen of the world and dedicate your life to help whatever, some situation in the world, universal compassion without selfishness on some level, what people in this world understands and has lack of selfishness and compassion. That's like praise, everyone is praising that above everything else. But when you reach the higher realm, is the opposite idea. No? So it's there, but as a foundation. But when the lila starts to take place, I mean, when the dynamics of the lila start to activate, yeah, I mean, if you have too much peace, you have no lila. I mean, lila implies movement, and peace implies the opposite of that. Santa-rasa is, I'm not moving, like Guru Maharaj will say. No. Why move? Just sit. But in Vrindavan, they will give you the opposite instruction. Why sitting and start moving? But dancing in the context of lila. So yeah, it's pretty astonishing and overwhelming. Prem. That's the specialty of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, as Guru Maharaj will say, is in the context of post-liberated stage. So try to imagine, peace has more to do with sattva here, or some generic form of emancipation. But Gaudiya Sampradaya will start to speak about what's going on top of that, above that. Once you reach mukti, on post-liberated stage, that's the specialty of the Goswami, bhakti rasa. That's the level of inquiry. Not a tato dharma jignasa, not a tato brahma jignasa, but a tato rasa jignasa. That's the focus of the Bhagavatam. So that's so high, but again, despite it is so high, we shouldn't forget that we need to go through certain stages in order to reach there. So peace is part of the equation, again, in the form of controlling our impulses and mind and senses. I mean, we have to do that job. No matter how refined is your theistic conception, you have to sit and, when chanting japa, concentrate your mind, basically. And if you realize that still after 5 minutes your mind is going shopping here and there, you have to do some homework. I mean, no matter how much you can be proud, no, I belong to Mahaprabhu Sampradaya and this refined, developed aesthetic conception of the divine. We are so fortunate. Yes, but we have to do our homework. Like one devotee said the other day, you want to see where is your relationship with Krishna? Just sit down for 5 minutes and see where is your mind in chanting japa. Practical. So if still we see that our mind is going here and there and it's attached to thinking and not being able to be in the present moment in relationship with Srinam, still we need to work on that. It's glorious. So yeah, it's important to explain Lila in a with this type of background, because if not, we can very quickly and cheaply speak about Lila and Krishna is doing this and the gopis, and it can all be reduced to like a funny story or like charming for our intellect even. Oh, how charming, but we may not be able to fully play out the implications of what it means to reach there from where I am here now. No? So the narration will be fully charming when I fully understand what it takes to do from me here to really be there. So there I will be really able to fully appreciate all that the Lila implies. It's not just like a game, if you will. It's divine play. So yeah. Anyhow, so some ideas. There's one question here, Sans. We have 10 minutes, right?
Yes.
So I'll read it and we will reply that in 10 minutes or so. It's a question sent by Ashwin Jaktiani. So it says like this. My pranams, is there a scope within the Bhakti Vinod Paribar to understand some aspects of the Bhagavatam in an allegorical or non-literal way, especially concerning the presentation of time and cosmology, since many of the Bhagavatam presentations contradict with apparent empirical observation? Some Gaudiyas outside the Paribar seem to be comfortable in saying that the Bhagavatam cosmology or duration of time is not meant to be taken literally and hence doesn't correspond to our experience on earth. But our contemporary acharyas like Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada seem to emphasize the literal understanding. Okay, so I don't know if I will be able to reply in 10 minutes. So that's a tricky one in this sense. So I'll try to say something, and if not, we can continue in some other moment. So I don't want to go too much late. But yeah, I'm aware of the situation, and it goes, of course, beyond the specific topic you are mentioning, whether cosmology and time, whether planet Earth is round or flat, or and so on. No, because yeah, as you mentioned, are there certain sections in the Bhagavatam that can be taken in allegorical way? There are many levels of inquiry here. Of course, I will say yes, there are sections in the Bhagavatam that can be taken in an allegorical way, or that should be taken because the Bhagavatam itself is mentioning that. For example, you have his story of Puranjana, on the city of Puranjana, and all these like metaphorical descriptions of the place, parts of the city. I mean, it's a whole chapter. And at the end, and that's and there's also in connection with one part that it seems to describe something that one is falling from Vaikuntha, which is another topic. It's in the 4th canto, but it's all allegorical. At the end of the chapter, the Bhagavatam itself, Narada is retelling this story and say, I'm using this analogy and allegory for illustrating a particular point. So this is not the particular section you are referring to, but I'm referring to some section in the Bhagavatam, which the Bhagavatam itself is saying this is allegorical. Or like even in the beginning with Sukadeva Goswami's, I won't say allegorical, but he's suggesting to Parikshit Maharaj meditate on the universal form of Bhagavan. And he's starting to say, so his bodily hairs are the grass, and like this. So it's a way of looking at the world in connection to its source, but it's not that in every single sense of the term, every single grass is Krishna's bodily hair, and because that can you can become dysfunctional, even like I'm walking on Krishna's bodily hair, I'm walking on him, and whatever. So it's a way of and you can call it, if you want, allegorical, no, like symbolic, if you will, or archetypal. Some ideas are there. So of course the point is you need a guru to know which parts are literal, are to be taken literally, which parts are allegorical, which parts are, because the Bhagavatam is speaking in so many languages, as it is said by Jiva Goswami. Speaks as a king, speaks as a friend, speaks as a lover. In other words, speaking about giving instructions without much explanation. Do this like an order, like a king will do. Speaks like a friend, like equals, another language and other terms. Or speaks like lovers, which is Vraja-bhavas. And Vraja-bhavas means indirect speech. When you are saying something, only your beloved will understand what you actually mean. Everyone else thinks they understand. And that's a charm, that only you and your beloved, you look at your eyes and it's even more charming when you realize everyone else misunderstood what we actually mean. But only the two of us got it. No? So that creates an extra charm. So there are sections in the Bhagavatam also speaking in those terms. So I'm saying all this because it's not just literal or allegorical language in the Bhagavatam and black and white and which is which and that's all. You have so many layers and of meaning and languages employed there. So it's not that easy task. That's why Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya, one have to pay close attention to the Bhagavat, book Bhagavat and the devotee Bhagavat. And concerning specifically your point, well, of course, you mentioned that there are some things that the Bhagavatam mentioned that contradict empirical observation. And again, for a minute, going beyond the topic in itself, we will find many things that will contradict empirical observation. I mean, empirical observation is it's called basically pratyaksha by Jiva Goswami. It's one of the three types of praman or valid means of knowing that we accept. Pratyaksha, anuman, and shabda. So pratyaksha means like direct sensory experience. No? I only believe what I see, what I can touch, something like that. Empirical observation. But Jiva Goswami say, although we use that on a daily basis, that's not at all the ultimate, definitive, conclusive method to ascertain the nature of reality. Even anuman, which is like, how's in English? Inference. It's not fully accurate. No, you see, there's smoke there. There may be fire. There's fire there. You conclude there's fire because generally you see fire and there's smoke, but not necessarily there's fire. There may be smoke for some reason, but not necessarily there's fire. So my point is, anuman also is not fully accurate. I'm just really summarizing something. You can read Tattva Sandara from Jiva Goswami from detailed explanation of that. But the conclusion is, for us to get real information about transcendence and subsequent transformation through that information, we have to resort to revelation, to Shabda, divine knowledge. And that's not an empirical method, that's transrational method. And for sure, the report of the mystics may contradict the report of the scientists or the empiricists. And the point is, and the Bhagavatam, of course, is part of that. The Bhagavatam is spoken in trance. I mean, Sri Vyasadeva was instructed by Narad Muni, you enter into Samadhi and then edit your Bhagavatam. He already wrote the Bhagavatam before, a first edition, as you know, but he was not satisfied. So he had to go through the editing house, if you will. But it was a certain standard of editing in this case. He had to enter into Samadhi. It was not about paying some nice editor, but his guru say, enter into Samadhi and all the necessary editing will reveal there. And then we have the Bhagavatam as we know it now. So the point is, he entered into trans-rational trance, mystic trance. So that has nothing to do with the empiric method. So many things in the Bhagavatam may really appear wild, to the empiric approach. So I will say that it's not that we necessarily have to immediately resort, oh no, that's an allegory because it's not fitting, empirical observation. Because try to understand, if I'm not saying that's the background of your question, but give me 5 more minutes, please. I mean, if something that do not fit empirical observation, that's reduced to allegory. I mean, then the whole Bhagavatam is allegory. The Krishna, Vraja-bhavas, everything becomes reduced to an allegory. Allegory, sorry. So and that's not like that works like that. Actually, on the contrary, for mystic, the limited empirical observation is kind of an allegory of the ultimate reality. It's like a symbol, a little indication, or if you want to call it, distorted reflection of the real thing. So actually, a mystic will say the opposite thing from his/her vantage point of view. From transrational experience, I mean, to expect that reality only will be limited to empirical approach, and it's totally like suffocating reality. So, but of course, I agree that of course we won't go to a laboratory and with the Bhagavatam in hand and try to preach to the scientists and convince them what Bhagavatam is saying is reality and your empirical observation is nonsense. No, because they have proved, I mean, on some level, empirical observation is proven, like, how do you say? It's working, basically. It's operative on some level, and that's the level they are moving. So you cannot just expect that they will just jump to the transrational mystical trance of Vyasa and agree with all the Bhagavatam says with you there. I mean, that's a totally different platform. So I understand that some type of clashing may be there when certain things are different. And I'm not so much of the idea that devotees should like take a very heavy stance. Let's fight these demons and let's convince how the Bhagavatam actually is the ultimate truth and whatever they're saying is mental speculation, because it's not working. You see, judge the first by a result. So there are many things to consider. Yeah, why the Bhagavatam is saying what it says regarding some things in time and cosmology, which is the place from which Sukadeva Goswami is saying what he's saying. Again, unless you enter into trance, how you will understand what someone in trance has to say, why they say what they say. No? And I understand many scientists and empiricists are not interested in that. They do not even believe in that. So I will say that the first conversation with them will be how to get closer into that idea, how to make them more interested into the possibility of a transrational perspective, instead of trying to fight who is right. Is the earth flat or round, or the time and the yugas and the ages and the duration? I mean, we will be fighting forever in those, and nobody will accept the other thing, and none of those things are foundational for our bhajan even. I mean, because sometimes I've seen devotees getting totally entangled. Like fifth canto of the Bhagavatam is about whatever, this type of things, or the forest of material enjoyment, and these type of sections that and they totally miss sections like Bharat Maharaj and those things that are the very essence, devotional essence of the Bhagavatam. So I will emphasize this type of things. I understand that Prabhupada, yes, I agree that he really make a more literal emphasis regarding, more absolutistic emphasis regarding whatever comes from revelation generally, because I understand why he did so, which were the climate of the time, the situation of his students, his own way of presenting things as well, and that was working for the time being. But of course, also he eventually, in time, he started to take different stances. He said different things about different things. And eventually he connected also his disciples with someone like Srila Siddhar Maharaj, which was a man of grace, not a black and white person. So, but again, we have to understand, we were speaking with Gorsunda yesterday a little bit about some of the things. Sometimes to understand why our acharyas say what they say, we also have to make a whole social cultural study of the times and the society and their own background, and separate some relative influences in their psychology and and their psychology of the audience. I mean, this is a whole messy stuff entering into that. It's not just like absolutizing everything that comes from there and I'm loyal to Srila Gurudev or something. You will make a disaster in the name of parampara generally. So it's important to take, at least some people, to take the time of like delving into this thing and trying to analyze them in further detail. But again, I wouldn't make that much big of a problem. But yes, in trying to interact with the modern world, I will say that devotees should be a little bit more cautious about how to start the dialogue, and maybe instead of trying to start the dialogue from that point, like let's convince them about the Bhagavatam version or something. Better how we can speak in terms so they start to appreciate the possibility of a transrational experience, because the Bhagavatam is spoken from that foundation. But if they do not even consider the possibility of trance, the whole conversation will be lost time for sure for both parties. So sometimes I think that's more important. Instead of how do we solve this conversation, to ask ourselves, is this the conversation we should be having to begin with? Or maybe we have to have 2-3 other conversations first to create the stage for eventually having that conversation in a more successful way. So some ideas, Ashwin, I hope that helps. Of course, that's a long, not so, long question, but long topic, but I appreciate your inquiry and your thoughts. So I hope that helps. So let's say we are already more than an hour, so we will finish here. Thank you so much to all of you for your time and your presence. And tomorrow we are beginning, if I'm not mistaken, with a series of lectures. I'm beginning with a series of lectures on the Venu Gita. So that will be the song of the flute, one of the 6 main songs of the 10th canto in the Bhagavatam, sung by the gopis, along with Pranaya Gita, Gopi Gita, Viraha Gita, Jugal Gita, Brahmar Gita. So I already did some of them out of order, so sorry for that. Venu Gita is the first one, but we are doing now like 4th order. So so we will begin tomorrow, and hopefully we have time to then go with the Pranaya Gita, which is the next one. So that will be in some days in the week. The flyer is there is at this same time, and then our Guru Maharaj will begin next day. No, there will be a special celebration on Tuesday, right?
Guru Maharaj comes on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday 22nd.
Okay, whatever. There's a flyer there, but our Guru Maharaj will give some special lecture on Wednesday for Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta's Tirobhav Mahotsav, but also starting a series on the Brahma Vimohan-lila and Brahma Stuti earlier during different days of the week. So the ones who are interested can join us as well. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Sri Harinam Prabhu ki jai, Sri Sri Dauji Gopal ji ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Praman Hari Bo. Mancha kalpataru vyasya kripa sindhu bhyai vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Ananta Koti Vaishnava